and don't let me go.
Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to Cam and Fam. Today I'm going to be talking about tips for getting through the first trimester and my first trimester experience. So first I'm going to be talking about my experience in the first trimester and just how that went for me. So how I found out I was pregnant is that I had implantation bleeding like a few weeks before my period was supposed to come, and my period always comes right on time. It's always very consistent and like the same flow and everything, but then it came 2 weeks early and it was very light flow. It only lasted 1 day. So I knew like something was up, that isn't my period, so I googled it. I found out about implantation bleeding, which is basically the egg implanting in the uterus, which can cause a little bit of bleeding. So I know my body very well, so I knew pretty much at that point that I was pregnant. So I probably would have been like 1 week or 2 weeks along at that point. So I found out very early compared to some people. A lot of people find out like once they're 5 or 6 weeks even, or even later. Even some people even find out after their first trimester. But I got to find out early, which is a blessing and a curse because I knew, so I wasn't doing anything bad to my body that would harm the baby without knowing. But I also had to wait even longer, it feels like, to find out the gender and all that exciting stuff. So I didn't officially find out until 2 weeks or a week after that, when my period was 2 days late. So then I took a test and of course it came back positive. So that's how I pretty much found out. Up to that point it had just been, I had the bleeding and my boobs hurt. Those were the only signs. It wasn't till I was about 5 weeks along that I started getting super nauseous. About 4 weeks I was kind of in an icky feeling and tired and not really wanting to go out and just laying in bed. But up until 5 weeks I hadn't like really thrown up or anything crazy like that. It had just been kind of here and there. Some days I felt good, some days I didn't. But then after the 5 week point I was throwing up like crazy. It just kind of got worse from there. Like after 5 weeks I probably threw up like once or twice a week, and then once I hit like 10 weeks I was throwing up like every single day. And so I went to the doctor and got prescribed some kind of medicine that was safe for the baby, of course, because it was my OGBYN that prescribed it to me. And it definitely helped me with my nauseousness. That definitely helped, and I'm so glad that I had that in the last few weeks. Up until the last day of my first trimester, I pretty much threw up every single day. And I didn't stop throwing. It slowed down, but I definitely felt nauseous up until about 15 weeks, I would say. It was when it completely went away. And since then I have just been hungry. Some foods that really grossed me out when I was feeling really nauseous were ramen noodles. I just couldn't stand the smell of ramen noodles. Pretty much any fish, any meat, especially bacon. The smell of bacon was just disgusting. I just couldn't stand the smell of really anything cooking. Like, I hated all of it. I pretty much survived off of having soup, and I craved peanuts. I ate peanuts like crazy. No matter how nauseous I was, I could always eat Cheez-Its, and I could always eat salt and vinegar chips. Those helped me a lot to just have something in my stomach so I wasn't starving during those few weeks that it was really bad. I also really craved milk. For some reason, I just loved milk. I would chug milk Another symptom I had during my first trimester was I was just so tired all of the time. I could sleep all day during my first trimester, and I pretty much did. I was also super obviously nervous, and I guess you could say excited more towards the end of my first trimester after the nervousness went away a little bit. I completely wore myself out with looking at baby stuff and reading all the articles on Pinterest about babies and looking at names and watching videos like this. By the time I was probably about 14 weeks, I just like needed to stop looking at baby names and all that stuff because I was just driving myself crazy. I mean, like making all the decisions, like am I gonna breastfeed, am I in the co-sleep, all of those things. I was stressing about it way too much when I had a lot of time to stress about it. So I definitely would say hold off on even getting into all of that until you are further along. Like right now I am 23 weeks, and I would say that is the time where you should definitely start doing a lot of research and finding out everything that you need and putting a registry together. But I would say during the first trimester, definitely look at names. Going into that appointment, I knew if it was a girl, it was going to be Collette, and if it was a boy, it was going to be Declan. So I'm glad that I had one of the biggest decisions made at that point. A weight lifted off my shoulders now that I don't have to worry about choosing a name along with all the other stuff I have to decide. Overall, the first trimester for me kind of sucked because number one, I was throwing up all the time. Number two, at one point I got sick, which is never fun. So the first trimester for me was just a big ball of anxiety and nausea. Some tips I have for your first trimester. Number one would be stay hydrated. I went through my first trimester during summer, and I lived in Texas and it was super hot. So staying hydrated was definitely very important, especially if you're gonna be outside at any point. I think I drank so much water. Plus, this is kind of gross, but during the first trimester, especially if you're throwing up all the time, it helps to drink water because it comes out way easier. I mean, if you're gonna throw up, you might as well be throwing up, not chunks. That's so disgusting. My second tip would be to eat lots of peanut butter and beans and stuff that has protein in it that's not meat, especially if you're like me and you just hated meat and the sight of it and the smell of it during your first trimester. It helped a lot to be eating peanut butter all the time. I would just take scoops of peanut butter and lick the spoon. That definitely helped a lot, and I got more protein. My next tip that I have is if you're gonna throw up, don't try and hold it in, because you can tell when you're about to throw up. And I mean, unless you're in a car or anything, hold it in until you're stopped. Definitely, if you feel like you're gonna puke at all, go to the bathroom or find a trash can. Do not try and hold it in. Next tip I have is to not wear yourself out when it comes to prepping and planning baby stuff. So yeah, don't stress too much about baby stuff because you have a whole 9 months to worry about all that stuff. So don't worry about all the decisions that you don't have to make until the baby gets here. Save all that worrying for the last trimester. Of course, you're gonna want to tell your spouse and maybe your parents, but I would recommend not telling anyone until you're done with your first trimester. Mainly because miscarriage rates are way higher during the first trimester. If you're gonna miscarry also, it's gonna be during your first trimester, which it would be 10 times worse than it already is to have a miscarriage if you are having to tell everyone about it, people you wouldn't normally tell. So I'd say just hold off on that until you're out of the clear, and then you can go ahead and make an announcement to everyone. The next tip I have for you is do not buy baby stuff until you know the gender. You can always buy gender neutral stuff, I bought these super cute booties like right when I found out I was pregnant. Of course, I ended up having a girl, but if I didn't, I would have to return those along with like so much other stuff. I went crazy. I bought so much girl stuff, and of course I don't regret it now because I ended up having a girl, but if I had a boy, I would have had to return all of that stuff and it would just be a huge hassle. So you can go ahead and buy a few things, especially gender neutral things, but just don't do what I did and buy a ton of baby stuff way before you even need it. Be patient when it comes to stuff like finding out the gender. All of those tests that people do to find out early, like if you're carrying high or low, they all were pretty much wrong except for the string test, which said I was having a girl, which I am a firm believer in the string test, but don't count on it. Don't buy a ton of girl clothes like I did. Everything shouldn't revolve around the baby right away. Enjoy your last few months before you really have to start worrying about it. If you're watching this, you're probably in your first trimester and you're probably doing what I told you not to do and watching a ton of videos about your first trimester and your second trimester and whether or not you should co-sleep and all of those videos. Just turn off YouTube and just go relax while you can. So that was my guide to the first trimester and just sharing my experience, and hopefully you learned something. I should be posting a lot more. I have plenty of video ideas, so subscribe if you want to see those. I hope you enjoyed and thank you for watching. Hopefully this was helpful.